Seeing how spring's finally here, it seems like it's been raining just about every single day. And around this time of year, that's usually when I start getting a lot of phone calls of, is the rain gonna actually impact my septic system? And the better question is, how much water can my septic system have in general? Today, we're gonna go ahead and dive right into it. But first, we gotta talk a little bit about how septic systems are designed. So let's hop right into it. When a septic system is being designed, the big thing, at least in our state of Maryland, is you gotta know the bedroom count and your design flow for the day. So in our area, what we usually use as our metric is 150 gallons of water per 24-hour cycle per bedroom, right? So for example, if you have a 4-bedroom home, it's gonna be 4 times 150, and then that will be your daily flow. So 600 gallons of water is what you would expect to use in a 24-hour cycle. Obviously, a little bit will be in the front of the day, a little bit in the middle of the day, and most of it will be at the evening of the day, depending on your lifestyle and the way that you function. But they design it for this much water so that we can get a good 30 or 40 years out of the drain field. When we're designing these, the bedroom count's what really comes into play. And a lot of people are confused by that because they always think that you got to put in bathrooms, and the bathrooms are what determine the size of the septic, and in reality, it's not. You could make an argument for square footage of the property, but generally, bedrooms is the easiest way to go. And the reason why is you could have 16 bathrooms on a 2-bedroom house, but realistically, how many people could be living there on a continual basis? Now, if you have that many bathrooms in your home, you're more than likely classified as a commercial property, which puts you into a whole different category of design. So for this argument and for this example, we're pretty much explicitly talking about residential, small, conventional systems. We're not talking about any of the advanced treatment, the aerobic systems. It's all gonna be the basic gravity-fed stuff. These are what you're going to come across most commonly on many of the homes in the state of Maryland. You won't normally find the goofy stuff unless you're by water or in like a swampy area. So we got a 4-bedroom house. It's designed for 600 gallons of water per day. And then the next part that they have to design is how big of a septic tank are they going to put in? In our area, generally the rule of thumb is 2x whatever your daily flow is. So if you have a 600 gallon per day flow, you need to have a minimum of a 1,200 gallon tank. Generally speaking, most systems, at least nowadays based off of Homeowner regulations, which is the state code, you're going to be pushed up to about a 1,500 gallon tank regardless of the size of the property. You're going to want to overbuild it so that way you have room for expansion down the road. Let's just say that 1,200 is our minimum design spec. You put 1,500. Now, if you decide in 20 years that you want to put a 5th bedroom on that property, you have enough space to actually do that, and you're not going to run into some problems. When you have your tank figured out, now you got to figure out your absorption system. That's where the Perk test comes into play. The Perk test is basically going to be where they dig a few holes in the property, see what type of soil they have, and then they're going to fill that hole with water and see how fast does the water dissipate. Once they finish this test, now you can actually design what kind of absorption system are you going to have. Are you going to have a drain field, a sand mound, a drip system, dry wells? Who knows what it is, but the Perk test allows you to basically do the math to figure out where you're going to put that wastewater, because again, you got to deal with that 600 gallons of water. So if you have 600 gallons of water, the trenches are going to be long enough and deep enough and full of enough stone to actually get that water into the ground, so that way the ground soil can actually start absorbing and getting rid of that wastewater and basically cleaning it, getting everything going back into nature's cycle. Now, if the Perk test fails, that leads to a whole host of other complications and issues. So today we're not going to discuss a failed Perk test. We're assuming everything worked, everything was designed properly. The next thing they have to figure out is the topography of the property. So when you're installing a system, obviously the tank has to be lower than the lowest bathroom in the house, unless you have an injector pit or something to that effect. Generally, modern installations, you don't want to be more than 18 inches below the surface, just so we can get to the tank and you can do things. So a lot of basements in our area, unless you're on a really big hill, most basements will have a pump pit that'll actually push the wastewater from the lowest bathroom, bar sink, utility sink, laundry, etc., pump it up and into the main sewer stack to where it'll actually flow out into the absorption or into the septic tank. The absorption system will roughly be around the same depth, if not to about 3 or 4 feet. And then you'll have another 2 to 5 feet of stone underneath, depending on what the Perk test results. So you have 600 gallons, you have the proper tank, you have the proper drain field length and width and depth. Now the topography comes into play. So when you're installing these systems, you want to look to see, where is it sloping? Is the hill going down? Is it going sideways? Is it going which way or what? on the property, whenever you're installing a septic field, you basically have to make sure that you run it on contour with the hill, meaning that you're going against the hill perpendicular. If you run a drain field straight down the hill once it rains or once you start putting water into it, essentially what will happen is it'll kind of bleed out the back. That's why with a drain field, at least in our area, the pipes are going to be put at a level depth. So that way you're using the front of the trench first. If you add a pitch to that drain field line, what'll happen is all that wastewater will go to the end, it'll fill up, and then basically either bleed out, surface, or it'll create some weird, funky situations with the drain field itself. So you have your water, goes in, drains out, everything's playing nice. You have to run against the contour of the hill, again, for the flow of the water into the drain field. Now you got to start thinking about the rain. So we've got all of that extra stuff out of the way. Let's go outside, take a peek, see what's going on in this nice rainy weather, and it might make a little bit more sense to you. So as we're looking at this property, we're going to see that we have the septic tank right here, and we can see that the hill kind of slopes down that way. So that means that the drain field has to run in this parallel. So with this, because the hills slope down, you have to go against it so that way when it's raining like this, all that rainwater, even if you accidentally put the downspout over top of the system, you might only flood out a little bit, not the entirety of the system. And this is good because you don't want to accidentally cause damage to your $20,000 system. Let's take a look at this downspout real quick and you'll kind of see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. So we can see here that we have a downspout that's going to go from the gutter over there directly over top of the septic tank and towards the field. Now, you definitely want to move that away, but let's start thinking about how much water actually comes out of there. Calculate the amount of water that comes out of the roof. The math is really simple. It's just basic geometry. So we need to know our length times width times our height. So in order to do this, let's just say, for example, that we get 1 inch of rain. Definitely happens, super easy, super common in our area, especially in the spring. So if we get 1 inch of rain over a normal rancher, let's just say we get a classic 1960s style rancher, it's 60 foot long, 30 feet wide, nothing crazy, normal basic roof. You get 1 inch of rain, so we do our math. So we gotta have 1 inch out of 12 inches, which is our number for our feet. So we divide 1 by 12, that gives us our decimal point. Then we multiply by 60, multiply by 30, and that gives us our total volume. But when we're trying to calculate the amount of water, 7.5 is the number we need to add as well, or multiply by also. That's going to give us over 1,000 gallons of water. So if we get an inch of rain over the course of a day, you just put 1,000 gallons of water. Now, obviously, most houses don't have all of the water going through one spout, but let's just say you did. That's where you can run into some problems. Problem, like we said, if our design spec is only 600 gallons of water per day, you dump 1,000 gallons through one spout right on top of your septic system. Guess what? You just went way over the design spec. That's why when you have issues with hurricanes where you're getting 4 inches, 5 inches or more of water just dumped on a system, of course it's not going to work because you've put way more water than what it's designed for. And this is only really if you have a downspout directed over the system. In the normal course of operation, because you have the slope of the hill, because you're running on contour with the hill, and as long as you're not putting the downspouts over the system, you shouldn't be affected by that much because the amount of water over the total surface area of the drain field is not going to be enough to really swamp it out, even if you're at 1 inch or 2 inches. It only becomes a problem when you funnel all of that water directly into the drain field. Whenever you have a house that is in a swampy area, this is usually where you start to see a lot more issues with the rain. So if you've got like marginal soil, like you got a lot of clay, it's kind of not a super great perking area, that's where you can start running into some more problems when it comes down to drainage. It's very important if you have bad drainage in your property, you got to get the water away from your septic, otherwise you're going to have some problems. Normal course of business, you shouldn't notice any issues from the rain, but it's something you got to think about. I'd say on average, I probably come across 1, maybe 2 houses a year that somebody did something silly, like put their downspouts on top of their drain fields or dump an entire pool on their drain fields. That's happened before. 20,000 gallons of water right over top of a septic system. Definitely didn't go well for them, but it doesn't happen often. If you're a normal homeowner doing normal homeowner things, you shouldn't have to worry about the weather impacting your ability to use your septic system. The amount of rain is so minimal that you should never have a problem. Same thing goes with just existence in washing your dishes, taking showers. You shouldn't have to worry about impacting your septic when it's raining and doing those things. The other inverse to this argument is if the rain actually impacts your septic system, that means you can't use the toilet or shower anytime it rains, and that's just not practical, especially in the spring, at least here, where we get multiple days in a row of rain. That can be really problematic. I know we covered a lot of ground. I know we discussed a lot of different things, but I think that in order to understand if rainwater actually impacts your septic system, it's important to understand how they're designed. I would argue in most circumstances, rain's not going to cause any problems for your septic if the system was designed correctly. In the grand scheme of things, you'll be fine, right? Most people will be perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about any of these things. If you found this helpful, if you found this informative, please hit that like button, hit subscribe. And if you have any questions, leave a comment below. I think that questions are always interesting because maybe you think of something that I haven't covered before, or maybe I can help answer whatever that question is to make things a little bit easier for you as a homeowner. My goal is to help you grow, and I'm trying to grow every day. So any question you have, leave it below, and hopefully I see it soon so that I can get to it. Otherwise, I will see you all in the next one. Take care.